Hey everybody, Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com, back to do another video and give my initial thoughts and analysis on probably the worst way the Steelers could start the season, outside, I guess, of being literally 0-2. They fall to the Kansas City Chiefs 42-37. They are 0-1-1 on the year, one loss, one tie last weekend against the Cleveland Browns. And, this one had all the makings of a shootout, and obviously that's what happened as Patrick Mahomes and Ben Roethlisberger combined for 9 touchdowns. Mahomes had a near perfect passer rating. Ben's was strong at 104.3. Ben throws 60 attempts, the second most he's ever had in his career. So obviously the focus starts with the defense and the immense struggles that they've had and have continued to have, not having Ryan Shazier on their side. And you could run this in a million different directions, and I don't know where to begin. And really, there's no wrong place to begin because you can look at any part of this unit, whether that's defense line, the linebackers, the secondary, the corners, the safeties, or the coaching, and you can find plenty of easy targets to blame. I don't even really know where to begin and where to start. I don't pre-plan these videos. I don't have a whole lot of thoughts initially in my head. It just kind of, stream of consciousness. But just too many easy completions. I think this team played probably more zone this week than man. They played a ton of man coverage against Cleveland last week, and Patrick Mahomes has the arm, talent, and the velocity to be able to zip those throws into tight windows. They did a poor job of covering the seam. Travis Kelce, who's to the Steelers' credit, is usually uninvolved whenever they play Kansas City or Kansas City plays the Steelers. Goes off for 2 touchdowns today, both I think in the red zone and down the seam. Linebackers did a poor job of carrying. There was miscommunication. Team, I think it was Mike Hilton. I think Jeremy Fowler had the quote that Hilton said after the game that it was the same thing. It's poor miscommunication and blown coverages, and that's exactly what happens. So when you have average to below average talent with a scheme that's not great and scheme that isn't always executed the way that it should be, you get those disastrous results like 42 points and the Chiefs going up 21-0 after the first quarter and giving themselves enough of a cushion that the Steelers had to dig themselves out of a hole the entire game, and even when they tied it up, the Chiefs were able just to run away with it in the second half. So again, it's just the talent's not there, the scheme isn't there, the coaching isn't there, the execution obviously is not there. And again, I look at the biggest issues of, and this went back to what I said, before the season started, who's the splash playmaker on this defense? I mean, yeah, there's talent in Cam Hayward and Tuitt, and TJ Watt's been impressive and the like, but who's going to be the Ryan Shazier type, the guy that's capable of making that big time splash play? We're talking turnovers, we're talking third down stops, and the like, when this team needs it the most. They don't have that player on this defense right now. They don't. Hayward's elite at what he does. Tuitt's really good. Again, Watt has some talent. Joe Hayden's been a valuable asset, but there is not that one playmaker, and generally he's going to come somewhere, either linebacker or secondary, usually not the defensive line unless you have like an Aaron Donald. And they just don't have that guy without Ryan Shazier, and that's a really, obviously a tall task to try to find that replacement and find that guy in the course of one off season. But until they do, this defense, that again is not going to have the best talent around, needs to have that guy that can create those turnovers and bail the defense out and allow them to make one or two splash plays when they need to. Now, to be fair to the defense, and this is the only time I'll be fair to the defense today, is that they got a safety that they did get a forced fumble late in the fourth quarter, although that came off some really shoddy tackling, and Hayward actually forced the fumble. So it's kind of funny that Cam Hayward has to do it all and be that splash playmaker as an interior defensive lineman essentially at this point. But yeah, it's just really bad, and there's very fair questions about Keith Butler's, how long is he going to last? Certainly a large question if he's going to be the defensive coordinator next year. I don't want to overreact to a moment, but my guess is no, he won't be the DC next year. And there's a fair debate to be had if he should be fired now. Obviously, the easy answer and the I don't want to say knee jerk, but the very again, easy answer to give right now is yes, he should be fired. Do I expect the Steelers to do that? Probably not, because their whole stability, continuity thing, and I'm not saying I agree with that. I don't really know where I'm at. I want to at least sleep on it. I'm recording this here on Sunday evening, and I want to go through the all 22 myself and just to see exactly what went wrong and what was scheme and what was player execution. So But yeah, obviously coaching is a huge problem. The penalties another huge problem. Now I think Mike Tomlin's a little wrong whenever he said the offense dug themselves into the hole by getting penalties in the first three drives. I think they had one penalty offensively the first three drives. One on the first drive of the game, a screen pass. Villanueva got called for a block in the back. They did make it a 3rd and 12. Which hurt them obviously, but it wasn't as big of a deal. There weren't so many penalties that I think Tomlin was saying off the top of his head in his post-game press conference. But 12 penalties total. That's back-to-back games with 12 penalties. First time that's happened, maybe ever. Definitely since the merger, and I think anything before merger, I don't really trust the data to be honest. So it's potentially ever, but the first since 1970. They've had 12 plus penalties in consecutive games, and that's just unacceptable. And that cost the team. Special teams penalties were atrocious, horrendous. You got 2 illegal formations, one on Matthew Thomas, one on Stephen Ridley on a safety play, on the safety return, where AB had a great return, gets out to I think midfield, the Chiefs 45-yard line. You get a penalty, negates it. They have to re-kick, and the Steelers start around their 35-yard line. So a big difference there in a critical part of the game. Just cannot have that. Special teams as a whole was really rough today. Obviously, Boswell, there's some concern there. About where kickers are so mental and fickle, and you can never really tell, even the great ones, when they might start to fall off. That's why Dan Bailey got cut, because as he's the most accurate kicker in NFL history, but he had a really rough year last year, just for whatever reason, and Dallas ended up cutting him to go to another guy. So hopefully that's not the scenario, but kickers live in their own head, and you just have to hope he turns it around, and you can coach him as much as you want, and hope, but you just don't know until it happens, until he does turn it around. So Jordan Berry, I know that he is somehow public enemy number 1 right now. I don't think he had a particularly strong game. Obviously, I'm being very moderate when I say that, but I do want to add the context. I know this won't be popular to say. I know you guys are going to leave it in the comment section, Alex, you're an idiot, and I get that. But the idea, and really the overall philosophy for Danny Smith's punting unit, but especially against a guy like Tyreek Hill, is that directional punting rules over yardage and getting these open air punts. So every punt's going to the sideline, every punt's trying to be pinned, so where there's no chance for a return, where you can squeeze the return man, force a fair catch, get some good hang time on it. So you're sacrificing distance for position. And that's why the first 2 punts, I think they went like 39 and 44, 45 yards. They didn't look good, but I thought they were actually executed pretty well. The coverage was terrible on both of them, but the first one especially, where D'Anthony Thomas is all alone somehow and rips the run back to around the Steelers, 10 or 15 yard line. That's just unacceptable. That's not on Barry. That's on the coverage unit, absolutely. Now, Barry did have a terrible punt where they tried to do positional, and it worked, but it only went 33 yards, went to Casey's 35. On those directional punts, I don't know what Danny Smith's number is. Obviously, you would love to have a 58-yard punt that's perfectly placed on the left sideline, but I think on those type of situations, you want the punt to be at least 40 yards, to get at least a net 40, 42, somewhere in that range. So the 39, the 44, I'm okay with. A 33-yard punt, that's not good enough net yards. I'd rather take my chances of the coverage units making a play, making the tackle. So we'll see what Barry's future is. Could they make a change? Absolutely. But again, I think there's some context there about what the scheme is. And Barry, to his credit, did have a really nice punt that set up the safety, pinning them inside the 1 that again set up the safety. So that's kind of semi-saving grace for him. But yeah, bad day for special teams all around. Coaching staff, you can put it on Keith Butler, Danny Smith, Mike Tomlin. No disagreements there, no arguments there. How does this get fixed? That's the important question, and I don't have a great answer to that. It's a bad day when even Mike Hilton, who's been such a steady and excellent player, has a fairly rough day. Again, defensively, Artie Burns struggled, did have a tough matchup, but I'm curious how many of those coverage breakdowns were him not getting the help that he needed. I don't know the answer to that, but I'm curious to find out. Cam Sutton was obviously really rough and got benched. I think 2 or 3 series into the game, which is far from ideal. You got Cody Sensabaugh, so you're really digging deep in your cornerback depth chart. We'll see what happens for next week. Just hope Joe Hayden can return. You can't rush a hamstring injury. You put him out longer, but we'll see what happens. Real quick note for the offense, because you guys know the story there. Ben was really good for that elbow injury, not practicing all but 1 day. Without a run game, you're getting a 21-0 hole early. That's a really tough spot to be in, and to tie that game up is nothing short of remarkable. Jesse James, hats off to Jesse James. I think he's been fantastic. A guy that's reliable, consistent, now is somehow putting up big splash explosive plays. Good for him. That shows chemistry with Ben, and whenever you practice every single day for the last Now, going on 4 years with your quarterback, that when you get into those scramble drills, which is how some of those chunk plays happen, that's how you get open, because you know what Ben looks for, you know what Ben's like. You practice those scramble situations in practice during the week, and it comes to fruition during a regular season game. So hats off to Jesse James. Has more receiving yards, Jesse James does, through the first 2 weeks than Antonio Brown. Who would have thought that would be the case? And it's by a decent margin. I think it's James has 198 and AB has 160. Juju, really good. Yak guy. AB, trying to get him involved, force feeding him the football to mix success, not able to get vertical with him. Teams are doing a good job of taking away his vertical threat. He's got to just keep his composure on the sideline, man. He's a great player, obviously best in the world, but some of this sideline antics, it's not good whenever the chips are down. That's not how you're going to rally back into some of these games. But another discussion for another time. James Conner made some great catches, even though the one-hander that unfortunately was not a catch, but drew pass interference. Again, night and day as a receiver, but that catch was out of this world, even if it technically was not a catch. Good to get Vance McDonald back. O-line was really strong. I thought Villanueva had a great game. Maybe Foster and Gilbert had a little bit more struggles, put 1 sack on 60 attempts when you're down 21-0 after one. Defenders, outside linebackers are putting their ears back. They're coming after you. That's a tough place to be, and I thought the O-line did a nice job. So I think I've covered it, well enough. Penalties, again, last week you can't win games with 6 turnovers and 12 penalties. This week you can't win a game with 42 points and 12 penalties. Just not going to happen. And so you got Monday night against a very hot Bucks team, a team that is 2-0. Ryan Fitzpatrick's killing it. They're getting vertical. They had huge touchdowns to Deshaun Jackson, O.J. Howard. Mike Evans got a touchdown pass today. Steelers, it does not get any easier for them, and they'll be traveling to Tampa for that. But if there's any solace, it's Monday night. Steelers generally play really well on Monday night, so hope for the best, but a lot of frustration. I love to hear you guys' comments. I know there's be a lot of anger, so feel free to kind of, leave what you're feeling and thinking in the comments below. But yeah, just a tough one, and it won't always be this bad for the defense, but I don't know how much better it's going to get, and that's certainly a huge concern going forward. But let me know what you guys are thinking. Leave your comments below, whether you're listening on YouTube, Steelers Depot, or following me on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.